what's his name, Shelcher, he was shooting the stuff, and I said that, and I said, you know, you can rest when you're dead. It even gets easier. So I never did want to retire, and I'll just keep going, and that's it. So all these years I've got about 50 published novels by now, and 3 books on movie making, and lots of other stuff. And I'm still making movies. You know, just a few years ago we did Michael John as a Zombie. I kind of do it on 2 levels. I have, you know, thanks to the digital revolution, it doesn't cost as much to make movies now. If you write the right kind of thing, you can do a really good job for, you know, just a few $1,000s. So sometimes we do movies on $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, but at the same time, I have projects that I sell and, you know, raise bigger money for. So right now I have 2 good examples of that. One is, I have 2 movies in pre-production. One is Midnight 3, which is going to be shot in LA and directed by Dustin Ferguson, who's done about 100 movies, and he's just a very talented guy. And then the other one is, I wrote a script called Spawn of the Living Dead. It's, you know, all of my stuff I endeavor to make unique, and I don't copy people and I don't plagiarize anybody. And so I wrote this script, and I thought it was pretty damn good. And as it always takes years, or almost always takes years to raise money. So and I always have, you know, many balls in the air at once, including this one. And a Canadian writer, director, producer named Annie Kidd Wolf. Lives in Nova Scotia, and she's a writer, producer, director, and also she's a singer in a punk rock band of her own. So I had a feeling that she would be the one to raise the money for this movie, and I just let her run with it. I didn't even ask for option money or anything. I just figured she's a go-getter and she's going to make it happen. So she has, and so that movie is in pre-production to be shot probably in Canada, but I helped her cast the leading actors from the U.S. So we have signed up for that movie. We have Kane Hodder and Bill Moseley and Michael Berryman, and a couple mainstream people that I didn't cast, but Annie did, or the production company did. And so at the same time, you know, I have several other properties in the works. My movie, My Uncle John is a Zombie, I play the lead in it, and I wrote it, and I co-directed it, and I even wrote 3 of the songs, and I sing 2 of them as a zombie. And it was a lot of fun doing that movie, and I'm getting good reviews for everything, the writing, the direction, and even the singing, so I got a kick out of that. So now I've written one called Uncle John Runs for Congress. And the idea of that is that there's a president that I call President Trump, and Uncle John, the zombie, is running against President Trump's hand-picked candidate, and he's leading President Trump's hand-picked candidate by 20 points in the polls. So Trump, by this time, Pittsburgh is known as the zombie capital of the world. It's where we started the whole thing with zombies and ghouls and everything. And now zombies are, if they get their medication, they can actually be, if they get proper meds, they can be integrated with the regular population. And so Pittsburgh is now a sanctuary city for zombies. And Trump doesn't like that. He wants to build a big, beautiful wall around Pittsburgh and then send his goons in to massacre all the zombies. And so he decides to send a couple assassins in to kill his own guy and frame Uncle John for the murder. So that's basically the plot of it. It's a movie I really want to make this week. I have to figure out how I'm going to raise the money. I have some ideas, but the script's done, the pitch deck is done. You know, Russ Streiner is probably going to be in it. Russ played, he played Johnny in Night of the Living Dead. You probably all know that.
Yeah.
Right now, the Living Dead people, the ones that are still alive are in, maybe some of the ones that are dead too. They're at Chiller Theater in New Jersey. And I'm here because I had a lot to do with Return of the Living Dead, and none of them really did. Russ had a little bit to do with it. I lost my train of thought. I was thinking, well, anyway, it doesn't matter. So recently, how many want to know about Return of the Living Dead? I can tell you things that you didn't know,
yes,
because I was the one that made it happen. I put the deals together that led to getting finance. And what happened was that I came into the office. At one point, we had in the early 70s, Russ Streiner, Rudy Ritchie, our friend Rudy, who introduced me, George, and Russ to each other when we were only 18 years old. So Rudy and Russ and I formed this company, New American Films, and I said we should do a Return of the Living Dead. And since George Romero and I both have rights to the property, the screenplay and the title, I said, there's no sense fighting each other. Why don't we just cooperate and get this thing made? But George's partners at the time didn't want to do that. So George and I signed an agreement where I gave him the right to produce Dawn of the Dead, and he gave me the right to produce Return of the Living Dead. And so we put some ideas together, most of which came to me. Rudy wrote a draft of the script, which I rewrote, and I was friends with people in the Sinatra organization, particularly Joey Rizzo and Tony Nino, who were Frank's bodyguards. And so I wrote a script, and then I wrote a novel, which was straight horror, and it's been republished now this year. For the first time in 50 years, it's available. I have 40 of them. They sold out. Most of them sold last weekend when I was in Sci-Fi. I was in Sci-Fi in the Valley in Altoona, Pennsylvania, which has turned out to be a really big convention hall. And then I had about 6 left, and as soon as people saw them on the table here, they bought them. So now I don't have any. I have to order some more. And in the foreword, I tell the story about how Frank Sinatra was going to finance Return of the Living Dead, the version that I wrote, straight horror, straight sequel, and for $3 million with me directing it. So I was flown out to Las Vegas and put up in the Sinatra wing at Caesar's Palace. Everything was going great. I was invited to the opening night show, opening night party, and the show the next night. And Tony and I were there. Joey was there. I met with Joey, met with Sinatra's attorney. And so Tony and I are sitting in this sidebar at Caesar's right outside of where Sinatra was performing. And people were coming out of the 8 o'clock performance, and I said, Tony, something is wrong. Look, these people look like they've just seen Invasion of Body Snatchers. And they did. They were absolutely stunned. Some of them had tears rolling down their cheeks. And this tall blonde woman, very classically dressed, came over to Tony and whispered in his ear. And then she went somewhere, and Tony said, Frank's mother was on her way to the opening night party, and her plane went down on the mountains. Well, she was killed. we went up to where the party was supposed to happen. Frank came in, people were hugging him and all this. And then he went up in another plane looking for the wreckage. And that's when they found out she was killed. And so at that point, this deal with Return of the Living Dead just was forgotten about. Forget it, you know. That's when Russ and Rudy and I ended up, we sold the rights then to the producer, Tom Fox, who had been paying us option money for several years. And along the way, I brought Toby Hooper into it. We did different kinds of things. There were full-page ads in Variety with me directing it. Then there were full-page ads with me producing it and Toby directing it and so on. Then the Sinatra thing came up. And then when that deal didn't happen, when Frank's mother got killed, Tom Fox, the producer, said, I'll buy you guys out. So he paid us a hell of a lot of money for the rights to the property. And then he landed a distributing deal from Orion and Hemdale Pictures, and it was contingent on turning the movie into a comedy. And they said, you can't do straight horror anymore. Straight horror is dead, which is never true. But that's the way things go in Hollywood, you know, and elsewhere. But I always say, straight horror is never dead. You come up with a good idea, it takes off. And you people all know that. You're probably all horror fans, so I don't care if it's Evil Dead or Texas Chainsaw Massacre or anything. Somebody comes up with a good idea that catches fire, if it's well done, and it launches careers and it can make millions of dollars. So now we have Orion and Hemdale. We're going to put up $4 or $5 million to make Return of the Living Dead according to a comedy slanted script from Dan O'Bannon. So I then had to novelize. I still had the novel rights, so I had to write a novel based on Dan's rewrite. And it had to be done, it had to be published the same and come out on the same day as the movie. So while Beverly and Jewel and all the other people upstairs, the cast that's up there, when they were making the movie in LA and I was writing the novel in Pittsburgh, so I wasn't working on the movie at that time. I didn't see the movie till it was released. And I just thought it was great. They did a fabulous job. It's far better than Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, wow.
But here's some of this stuff is really good lessons about how things work and how to get burned in the entertainment business. So now, George, by this time, Dawn of the Dead comes out, and George had appropriated some of my ideas from the script that he read, the original straight horror, Return of the Living Dead. He had stolen some of those ideas for a revision for Dawn of the Dead. His original script was about a man and a woman living in a crawl space of a mall. It didn't have much action. It was very talky. Then when he read my script, he saw how to put the action into his script, changed around some of the ideas a little bit, and that's resulted in Dawn of the Dead. So Dawn of the Dead took off and became a huge hit. Then Day of the Dead was getting made around the time that Sinatra was going to finance my version of Return, which had something to do with why Orion and Hemdale wanted to turn it into a comedy. Because some of the action scenes in The Return were now would look like like I'd stolen from Dawn of the Dead when really mine came first.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's happened. The next thing was, when they were about to get the deal for Dawn of the Dead, this is now, I had left that company, and Richard Rubenstein came in, and he and George were partners. United Film Distributing was going to distribute Dawn of the Dead, and when that happens, they want everything locked up tight in terms of legality. So they needed me to sign many, many documents, or they would have lost their deal. And I was living in North Huntington, about 30 miles from Pittsburgh, and in those days, people didn't have their own fax machines. You had to go to the Xerox headquarters to fax anything. I must have made 15 trips into the Xerox place to sign documents and fax everything they needed so they wouldn't lose their distribution deal, because what the hell, George and I were friends from age 18, and I didn't want George to fail. I wanted him to succeed, and I would do anything I could so their film could go into distribution. So now, what that means is that they would have lost their distribution deal if it wasn't for me being willing to sign off on things that clarified his right to that property. Okay, so I did that. Now, Return of the Living Dead's about to come out. And first of all, they are making Day of the Dead, and Return of the Living Dead is being made in LA. So, let me think now. So I said to Rubenstein and George, these two pictures are going to come out at the same time and fight each other. And that's going to mean that they're both going to lose money or be flops. So why don't we be smart and just stagger the releases? Let's don't release them at the same time. Let's just make a deal. One picture gets released, and a couple months later, the other one gets released. That way, they're not fighting each other in the marketplace. They were so sure that their movie, Day of the Dead, was going to be a hit and mine was going to be a flop, that they said no. And they sued to take my title away from me. This is after I helped them get their distribution deal, did everything I could. Now, they go to the Motion Picture Association of America and try to do me out of my title. And I had to go to New York with Hemdale and Orion's lawyers against Richard Rubenstein and their lawyer, and I had to fight to keep the Return of the Living Dead title. And they came up with such sleazy bullshit, a little kid could have seen through it. And the MPAA ruled 100%, totally unanimously in my favor, and we kept the title. And their picture was a flop, and ours was a massive hit.
Yep.
And spawned all sequels down through the years. This is just backbiting bullshit, and it's what goes on in this business. So now you know a large part of the inside story. Through it all, I remained friends with George Romero. Again, we were friends from age 18. We struggled and slept on a studio floor and starved and went without pay, and we did all that stuff. We were in the trenches together, and I never wanted him to fail, and we remained friends till he died. So, does anybody have any questions about any of that or anything? Yes, sir.
So, Rubenstein, you think, was the motivating factor to go against you in court?
Can you come a little closer?
Sure.
I don't know if I can hear better. Like I said, I have some hearing loss.
So, Rubenstein, you believe, was the motivating factor in
taking you to court to try to get you to lose your rights? Do you believe it was him that was,
Just tell him, use the mic. Rubenstein, that son of a bitch.
Yes.
There's no other word.
Absolutely.
I can't stand the son of a bitch. I'll tell you another thing. I'll tell you another reason why. I'll tell you what. I don't pull punches now. What you see is what you get with me. I tell the truth. In fact, Sam Sherman, who just recently died, and he was president of Independent International Pictures, and they distributed several of my movies, and he said, I tell one story, and it's a true story. That way I don't have to remember which lies I told to who. Well, that's how I am, you know. So now, I was also the one who, I set up a lunch meeting with George Romero and Russ Steiner, and I proposed that we do a remake. Remakes were being done. George Lucas did one. You know, remakes were the thing. So we met in the Shady Side of a restaurant, and I proposed that we do a remake and try to get some money for the shareholders, because we all had been ripped off out of almost every penny for all those years. And so George and Russ both agreed to do that, and so eventually, at first we had 5 or 6 distributors interested in putting up $5 or $6 million to do this remake, but we didn't have a script, and eventually without a script being written, I was busy making a movie, George was busy making a movie, and we didn't have time to do the script, so it didn't get done for a while. And the interest kind of flaked away until finally George did a rewrite of the original script in 21st Century Films, then put up $5 million. And it wasn't that simple. It didn't happen that smoothly, but anyway. So we made this movie, and the remake, 21st Century Films made a deal. They sold the movie to Columbia Pictures, and this is 1990, and it was going to come out for Halloween release, right around, October, like the first picture. And so when that happens, you have to prove your title rights and everything else has to be straight up and down, or you're going to lose the distributor. And George and Russ and I are signed to a $5 million bond. That's the way it's done. We're on the knot for $5 million. If Columbia doesn't accept the picture, we're stuck for all the production money. Now, we go to register the title, or to at least clear it, and we find out Rubenstein has registered the title in his own name.
Oh, no.
And he did it when he was our agent. Because when Dawn of the Dead came out, and they had a big hit with that movie, and George's career was riding high at that point, and I thought that it would be a good move. We might as well when we got the rights back for Night of the Living Dead, we might as well get Rubenstein to agent it, because now Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead are both under the same agent, and it's going to be advantageous to all. Well, it was advantageous for a while, but when he was our agent, he registers our title in his own name. And now we have to get that title cleared. If we would have had time, he could have gone to jail for that. But we didn't have time, because it's already October, and the picture needs to go on 2,000 or 3,000 screens. He made us pay. He made our lawyer, George's lawyer in New York, Barry Gutterman, he made Barry Gutterman come over to Rubenstein's office with a cashier's check for $18,000. So he would release our title. That's why I call him a son of a bitch, among other reasons. But that's the top reason. And there is almost no way to avoid getting ripped off, you know, in the entertainment business. I mean, I just saw Al Pacino, he got, his accountant got him for $40 million, his own accountant. I mean, the thing is, fame and notoriety and money and the entertainment business, the glitz and the so-called glitz and glamour attracts everybody, and it really attracts the thieves and the con artists. You know, the rapscallions are greatly attracted. They want to bask in the notoriety of being a hobnob with famous actors or singers or whatever, but they also want to grab as much money as they can. It's like, I used to say, like, I used to sing in an R&B group when I was in high school and college, and so I followed all this, you know, what was going on. And people like, you know, Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers, and you name it, the Turbans and the Drifters and all, and the Fleetwoods, and so the managers and agents and the record companies, they give themselves credit as writers just so they can get the royalties and do the performers out of the royalties. And they even think that they're being a good guy because what the hell? Frankie Lyman, what the hell, man? You got the girls, you got the fame, and that's what you wanted. And we got what we wanted, which was the money. So it's a fair deal.
Yeah. To get the microphone.
Come on up. I have a question before he brings his question. John, do you ever get writer's block? And if you do, you ever get writer's block? And if you do, how do you get over it?
Is that what you asked me? Do I get writer's block?
Was there also a remake of The Night of the Living Dead?
I really don't. You know, here's something. How many have any desire to be writers? Or,
A little bit.
okay, there's one. Okay, so a couple people. Usually, if I have an idea, I know what I want to write. Basically, what kind of story. And I'm not writing yet. I generally just find out there's something I haven't thought of yet. And when I think of that, then nothing holds me back. I get up every day and I stick with it. And I'm very, very prolific. I was represented in the 80s and 90s by Triad, which was the hottest agency in Hollywood. And I did really well there, you know. And the reason the agent, Bruce Kaufman, among other things, he packaged Mrs. Doubtfire, so he was a really powerful agent. And when he went from H.M. Swanson to Triad, he called me up and asked me to go with him, and I said, why me? And he said, well, because people like you and you're prolific. Well, prolific's really important because, and I learned this because a lot of times the big agencies, you know, some production company, like one time they called up and Bruce called me and he said, I have a company that wants to do some kind of a modern gladiator story. And so then almost anything they would ask me, I would have like 18, 20 ideas in my file drawer, you know. I could pull something out. I have this, what's this sound like? That happened with Voodoo Dawn, which the movie's lousy, but I had the idea that they bought. Anyway, but I can tell you, sometimes, you know, I teach writing classes or give lectures on it or whatever, or symposiums, and I've had ladies, like middle-aged ladies, and after they hear me talk about it, they'll come in the next day and they'll say, you know, we couldn't write for 20 years till we heard what you had to say, and then we went home, we were able to write. So I'll give you a sketchy thing of it. I mean, the thing is, if you have an idea, some kind of theme, like a lot of times I use my novel Daycare, which is not a screenplay, but it's a novel. And I had read an article in Newsweek, and I had a picture of this Professor Jose Delgado. You can have a seat unless you have a follow-up question.
That was actually my question.
Huh?
My question was the writer's block. He haven't given his question yet.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought that was your question.
No, he's got his own question.
There was also a remake of The Night of the Living Dead. Were you involved in that too?
Were you involved in the remake of Night of the Living Dead?
What about it?
Were you involved in it?
Remake?
Yeah, 1992 came out.
No, you mean the remake that's being talked about now?
Yeah, it came out.
No, I have nothing to do with it.
Came out in
I
1992.
have no interest in it. I don't know who's doing it.
Came out in 1992, I believe.
I don't know anything about it.
Colorized version. There's a colorized version.
So, what? To give you a brief sketch that might help you in writing, anybody that wants to be a writer. Okay, so this Jose Delgado, this is a good example. There was a photo of him with a TV kind of remote in his hand in a bull. He was in a ring with a bull. And what he would do is he'd hit a button and the bull would charge him. Then he'd hit another button and the bull would stop dead in its tracks. Well, the reason he could do that is because there were certain neurosurgeons and other scientists who they were trying to find a way to cure or stop epileptic seizures. So they were mapping the human brain and they were inserting electrodes into various parts of the human brain to find out which areas of the brain control what. And pretty soon they had the whole thing mapped out. They knew which section had to do with sexual impulses, anger, anxiety, you name it. So he could hit the button to trigger aggression, and that bull would charge him and hit another button and to pacify the bull, okay? And the article said that he was advocating that every human being should be implanted with electrodes at birth to produce a more peaceful, more intelligent society. And I thought, well, what can go wrong with that? And so I started to develop an idea for a novel or a screenplay. And so once you have an idea like that, that's the theme, okay? Then you ask yourself, what characters should I have in a story that would come into conflict with each other and would have some kind of goal that depends on this technology, or who would be against the technology, you know? I ended up writing a novel that I consider almost like a Rosemary's Baby of technology, because at that time I knew that yuppie kind of people were fighting battles to get their little ones into the best daycare, or the best kindergarten, or the best grade school, and whatever, all upwardly mobile people. So I figured I have to have a couple that has a little girl that they want to get her into the best education that they can get her into, and the wife is all gung-ho about this. She's the stage mother, and the father is not in tune with that, you know? So there's two of your characters right there. And then what if this academy that all these parents are almost killing each other to get their kids into, an academy has sections that deal with preschoolers, kindergartners, grade schoolers, high schoolers, all the way up. And what if some of the kids are already implanted with these electrodes? And what if somebody secretly has hacked into the system and now knows which kids he can control? And now who at the academy is really running this, or thinks they're running it and doesn't know it's been hacked? So so you're developing characters that can have a key role in this whole system, in this whole setup. So once I have that, I can start running. I do it on slips of paper. I just start writing every kind of scene that could happen, or between the different characters. And then once I do that, I can arrange them from, all right, which scene is an opening scene, which comes first, which would happen in the middle. This scene where everything blows up, or the ultimate resolution belongs here, and I can lay those slips of paper out and number them, and right there I have an outline on slips of paper, and I can use those slips of paper to write a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 page more detailed outline, spelling out the character descriptions more. And so in about 3 or 4 hours, I got an outline for a whole novel or a whole screenplay, and it all makes sense. Anybody learn anything from that? So,
Again, how do you deal with rejection and discouragement? Like, I mean, I get a writer because I'm discouraged because of the rejections. I mean, it's a tough business.
That's a joke. There's always rejection. And everything you do, there's always spite and jealousy and backstabbing and naysayers and all that. It's not for the faint of heart. You have to really believe in yourself, and you have to be correct about your belief too. So, I mean, it's, I asked George one time, I said, George, when you direct a movie, does it happen that a lot of the people on the crew or on the staff think they can do it better than you can? He said, every single time. So, in a way, you can't blame them because they believe in themselves too.
Wow.
However, most of the time, they believe in themselves with very little evidence. You know, it's mostly people can't do it. I mean, there are named directors in Hollywood that don't know their ass from a hole. You know, and we had to learn the business from scratch. You know, if George was directing, let's say, all the hundreds of commercials and documentaries and everything we did all the way up to Night of the Living Dead, by that time, we were a real tight-knit production unit. Nobody needed to be told what to do. There were only 5 of us in our little company, you know. But if George directed, he also shot it. George was his own cinematographer, and he edited his own stuff. And a lot of times, you know, like if I directed something, then I was the editor, and I you know, and a lot of times the producer too. I'd be the one building or making the sets and the props and every other thing. So now, if you are going to go edit your own stuff, you damn well better know in your mind how it's going to be edited, especially if you have to do it on a 6-to-1 ratio like Night of the Living Dead was. Most Hollywood productions are shot on 25 to 30-to-1 ratio. That means 25 or 30 times as much footage is shot as what it's going to end up. In Night of the Living Dead, it was 6-to-1. Wow. George did a great job as director because he knew editing. George was maybe a better editor than he was a director in some ways, you know. But he had a lot of times we were running out of film stock. You know, we had very little money, so we would rehearse the camera moves, the actors, everything. And usually I'd be doing follow focus if George was shooting, and we after we have one take, and it better be right, and it better not come back from the lab with a scratch on it. You know, we didn't have any leeway. They were going to bulldoze that farmhouse when we were done shooting, so we couldn't go back there and get and reshoot anything because it was gone. So, I mean, George was just winging it to that extent, but he had the talent and the expertise to wing it. And later, you know, later, because I was in the Army when they started out, him and Russo, and I got up, so it took me a couple of years, but then by the time I got up, I can do the same thing. That's how I do it. You know, if I can't, now with digital, you can shoot as much as you want, doesn't hardly cost anything, but back then when you had to shoot 35 millimeter, it cost a whole lot to buy that film stock, process it, work, print it, and everything else. Then you damn well better be right.
Yeah.
And it better work.
Yeah, and then how did you like the remake of?
One question.
Yeah, well, yeah. How did you like the remake of Night of the remake that you produced of? How did you like the remake of Night of the Living Dead that you produced? The Tom Savini director.
You want to know how you like the version of Night of the Living Dead?
That you produced, whatever.
How I liked it.
Yeah, the 1990 version.
The 1990 version.
How I liked it.
Yeah, did you like it?
Well, I had to rescue that movie.
Well, it's amazing.
Savini and I had a quarrel because he still doesn't realize what the hell really happened. I mean, and I don't mind saying that because he gets up on stage and puts me down.
Yes,
He blames me for
He
the
does.
movie you never saw. Well, you're never going to see it because it was so fucked up.
Woo! Yeah, right.
I was in charge of giving the R rating. You did. At one point, we used to joke that Tom Savini is an excellent editor, and he had two other editors working with him. And we used to joke that the film was going to be edited before it was shot, because that's how fast they were. Okay, and it was a good thing because Tom, about 3/4 of the way through the shooting, we knew all kinds of mistakes were being made. I mean, George and Russ and I knew. So Tom brought a moviola and everything that had been edited thus far down to the location where the farmhouse was. And George and I sat in front of that moviola for 24 straight hours trying to figure out how to fix the mistakes.
Wow.
Okay, there were continuity mistakes out the ass. So, and mostly who fixed it was me. You know, I'm telling you the truth. I mean,
Yeah.
that wasn't one of George's strong points. I can look at something, and even somebody else's work, and I can move this here, move this there, move that there, and make it work when it didn't work in the beginning of it. So what we were doing was basically filling holes. What do these people were running? George called them Muppets. You didn't know where the hell they were. You didn't know where the living room was, where the kitchen was, where the fuck anything was. There was no continuity.
No.
You know, and then this is wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. How in the hell do we fix it? So we have to try to come up with just minimal reshooting because we're running out of money. The distributor is constantly threatening to just dump the whole production. So we fixed as many things as we could. We were jotting notes down, so you know what we were going to have to reshoot. And then we were stuck. We had no more footage that could be replaced this and replaced that. And we still didn't know which end was up as far as that farmhouse.
Wow.
So I said to George, well, you know, the reason movies are shot in Hollywood was through the sunlight. Because they would have a house with the whole front removed, right? You could clearly see where the kitchen was and the dining room and the living room, etc. And screen direction was if it's a Western, here's the ranch and here's the town. And if the stagecoach is going this way, it's going to town. And if it's going screen left, it's going to the ranch. All right. I said, George, we have to act as if this house has a living room here and a dining room here and a kitchen here. And we have to make it look like that's where they are, even if the house isn't built that way. We have to do everything we can to make that kind of logic out of it. And so that was one of the schemes we used to figure out how to fix this. And then again, we running out. Still, we couldn't fix everything. And that's when I said to him, okay. I had seen Friday the 13th. And Friday the 13th, they used a full moon shot very effectively. The scene, you know, somebody would get butchered and then cut to a full moon or whatever. And so, and it really worked with the right music. I said, we have to do the same thing. We have to shoot a full moon and use that to bridge the holes in the movie.
Wow.
So we shot a full moon off the front porch of the farmhouse, and that's how we fixed that. There were many more things fucked up.
Thanks.
I had to fix them all. Then I had to, you know, because here's something you might not know either. You submit your edit to the MPAA Rating Commission.
Yeah.
And they actually give you footage counts. And they're much harder on independents than they are. Like I had a decapitation in my movie Midnight, which is a very low budget movie. And Tom Savini did some of the special effects in that movie. And I had a scene where the bad guys were gonna have these two cops that they killed, hanging from the rafters and throwing knives into them. And Tom said, well, I have this machete that I use in Friday the 13th. Why don't we have the big guy just decapitate one of them? Okay. So we use the same machete, same kind of decapitation. MPAA takes it away from us, but they let, was it Paramount? They let Paramount have it, okay? The majors get treated quite differently than the independents. So they say, you know, frame numbers, and they'll give you the frame count, and they'll say, too much blood splatter. Well, now you lost that blood splatter. You got to take that out. There's no difference. You won't get your R rating if you leave it in.
Wow.
So, and if you don't get the R rating, Columbia doesn't accept the picture because it won't get wide enough distribution. So you're under their thumb. You know, you can fight a little bit, but you're going to lose almost all of that. Okay, Tom blames me for taking some of those shots out. Well, I had no choice because I told him, Tom, you can't. If you're going to shoot a zombie in the head, you can't frame it head and shoulders. And fire the squib goes off and the blood flies and the zombie drops. And then when the MPAA takes that blood splatter away from you, you only got 8 frames left.
Oh, wow.
Now you lost the shot. You have to stage it so like the zombie shambles into the shot and he gets shot, but he doesn't fall right away, Tom. He has to go down slowly, fall against that log fence over there. And that way, when the blood splatter's taken away from you, you have a cutaway and a bend with the gun, and back to the zombie, and he falls against the log fence and he goes down slowly. Now you did lose your shot. He didn't listen. So he lost a couple of those shots. Then he gets up on stage like I am now and blames me.
Yep. I heard it. Yeah,
Well,
saw it. Thanks, man.
Are we done?
You're done.
Thank you so much.
John, thank you so much for all